I've been wanting to talk about Pluto's ingress into gate 41 for a few months now, and this retrograde is the perfect time to talk about it. Pluto is going to be going retrograde in the sign of Aquarius from May 4th until October 13th of 2025, and it will be retracing the degrees that he has gone through from January 2025. Retrogrades begin a time of reflection, possibly revising or redoing certain things that we had thought about while Pluto was direct. With the outer planets, because they happen so often to be in retrograde, like Pluto's going to be retrograde for over 5 months, we may feel these retrogrades less acutely than personal planets, like we recently had Mars and Venus retrograde and Mercury retrograde. But that doesn't make their retrogrades any less important, just more subtle. So the energies of that planet, so Pluto, are going to go inward and feel stronger to us actually while the planet is retrograde. But the shifts are internal, slow, and yet powerful, and can set the stage for massive changes in the external too. So what is Pluto bringing more internal to us? What does Pluto represent? Pluto is power, transformation, the subconscious, the underworld, our shadows. When he goes retrograde, those sorts of themes are going to feel more important, especially internally, and we're going to be reflecting and reviewing these things depending on where Pluto is in our chart. So how will you reclaim your power? Where will you discover your shadows? We're going to talk about more of these questions in the all signs. But this Pluto retrograde is happening in Aquarius, right? So this adds a different sort of flavor in the sign. The themes of Aquarius can be our sense of belonging in the world, social progress, humanitarian issues, where and how we conform or rebel, groups and communities that we belong to, and how we express our individuality. So these are the themes with Pluto, and the power struggles and the transformations. These are collectively the themes that we're going to be dealing with, and it's going to be happening in that part of your chart. And so once again, it's going to really depend on your chart specifically. Now, if you have planets, especially Sun, Moon, Rising, in the first 5 degrees, so 0 to 5 degrees of the fixed signs, Leo, Aquarius, Scorpio, and Taurus, you're going to be feeling this way more intensely. So because this retrograde is happening in the first decan of Aquarius, the first decan of Aquarius is ruled by the 5 of Swords. The 5 of Swords is... all of the 5s have a sense of imbalance to them, and they're kind of in this spot between the 4s, which are balance, and 6s, which is generally the card of success in some ways. So 5 is kind of the mess in between that, between where you risk something, abandon comforts, and risk something in order to become successful or to have some sort of change. The number 5 is really a card about change. So with this is with swords, so it's the mental realm that we're talking about. So there could be some chaotic thoughts, but it could also be the courage to risk something for something better. Now, this actually plays into the gate 41 that I'm going to be talking about and some of the other themes here, because if we think about when we take a risk to do something, we're essentially abandoning something that we're comfortable with and going towards something that we don't know, and we're trying to remain in some essence hopeful. I'm going to actually read something from Susan Chang and what she says about the 5 of Swords being in this first decan of Aquarius. She says, Aquarius is famous for its embrace of what seems hardly plausible. To be an idealist is to have a durable hope in the face of even the perpetually impossible. Thus, the 5 of Swords can be a card of longing, sharp and bittersweet. Longing is the double-edged sword that fans desire without satisfying it. It creates avid interest without the opportunity to pursue. I want to talk about this idealism and hope. I think we're, with this Pluto retrograde, really having to reevaluate hopefulness and redefining what hope can actually be in our lives, and really reflecting upon when it's useful and when it's not. So the 5 of Swords to me is kind of pointing to the sense that where I feel like a lot of us are collectively. which is that we may have been hopeful for too long, or hopeful in situations that simply are not working for us. This is interesting to say because often you hear the message that we should be hopeful. No, you should remain hopeful. You should remain hopeful. And so if we even look at David Hawkins' map of consciousness, the feeling of hopeful feels under willingness, which is at a frequency of 310. So it's quite high in frequency. And so I don't think people are wrong to say we should remain hopeful rather than be stuck in shame or guilt or fear or anger, which are vibrating at a very low frequency. But we can see that hopefulness and willingness is not the highest energy, right? And what's above that is acceptance. And this is something I talked about in my Neptune-Venus conjunction, which is happening just days before Pluto goes retrograde. And I talked a lot about this, like surrendering to love through acceptance of our pain. And so sometimes I feel like what's happening for a lot of people collectively is that there's a situation that we've been too hopeful about that is simply not working or simply not working right now. And this Pluto retrograde is giving us an opportunity to kind of shatter that hope. And this sounds, like I said, counterintuitive, especially if you have hope, motivation, and human design, and seeing like, have we held on to hope for too long? Because sometimes hope means that we're holding on to things, people, relationships, jobs, and other situations that are simply not working for us anymore, or are just not as important as other areas right now. I feel like we think that if we lose hope, we automatically have to go down in vibration and frequency into guilt, shame, anger, victimhood. And I just don't think that's true. And I think that at first there may be a painful realization that something is simply not working anymore and that we've been hopeful for too long and we need to let it go and focus on other things. That realization can be incredibly painful. And for a lot of us, being hopeful, I feel like, is a mechanism to keep us from pain. But sometimes we need to see that pain, right? In order to be able to actually move beyond it and to stop repeating these energetic patterns. I was reflecting on this Pluto retrograde, gate 41, conversations I've had with friends and recent clients. I kept getting this intuitive feeling that a lot of us are circling the same invisible weight. Like there's something underneath the surface that keeps repeating or just won't move. And that's kind of what I'm talking about, this thing that we've been like too hopeful about in order to keep us from feeling pain that is actually quite necessary for us to feel right now. And Pluto doesn't do surface level, right? We know this, but sometimes we can't see those blocks clearly until somebody can gently reflect this back to us. Like I'm somebody who I've always liked being in therapy. I've always liked getting readings. I've always liked getting coaching because no matter who you are, right, you always need somebody to kind of maybe reflect things back to you so that you can see it in a different light. I decided to create something simple and free for you guys. And if you're feeling stuck and you just want a little bit of clarity, you can fill it out. I'll read your answers, tune in, send you a quick voice note with what I sense might be at the root of it. I feel like this is very much aligned with Pluto's energy and us getting out of these patterns, these very heavy patterns that I feel like we're like circling around over and over again and are desiring to transcend. The link's below if it calls to you. I'm gonna try to keep it open as long as I can. It really just depends on how many responses I get. So yep, that's down below. Now let's talk about gate 41. This is called the gate of contraction. And the hexagram 41 is called decrease. The gene key goes from the shadow of fantasy to the gift of anticipation to the city of emanation. There is a lot of pressure to act with this gate because it sits in the root chakra of the human design body graph. So when we're in the shadow of fantasy, we either become very reactive and try to chase so many desires that none of them ever have time to actually materialize, or we repress the desires and the pressure to act completely and kind of get lost in this fantasy world but never do anything about it. So these are the ways that this shadow frequency can come out. And like I said, because it's in the root chakra, it gives us this pressure to act or to kind of shut down. The root chakra is our adrenals. With the repression, this is why so many people in our world love the realm of fantasy fiction and novels and movies and all these things that can keep us in the dream, right? Rather than actually having to do anything about it, which actually ties in really well with the fact that this is in Aquarius, right? Because Aquarius rules technology. So we could be reevaluating our relationship to technology during this time. And, I actually have Saturn in gate 41. So I've had to learn a lot of painful lessons around the shadow of fantasy. And that's why now it's a huge part of my work and what I help people with, because I spent so much of my life stuck in the shadows of old energetic patterns that I had difficulty actually getting out of because I stayed too long in this hopeful fantasy world. So maybe you're one of those people who has a lot of desires and you chase them frequently, but then when you get a new desire, you don't know if this new one is worthy of chasing, and so you just chase all of them. Or like I said, you kind of repress it and then just live in this very fantasy world. So hexagram 41, like I said, the hexagram is called decrease. And I think it's really interesting that gate 42 or hexagram 42 is called increase. So the I Ching, this age-old wisdom, is saying that before we can increase sometimes, before we can expand sometimes, we need an area or we need a time of constriction or loss. And this hexagram is really saying that you may need to cut back on a certain area of your life in order to direct more energy towards another area right now. You may have to give up something that you feel is important as a commitment to growth to another area. What this energy is ultimately doing is kind of almost like if you imagine a tree that needs to be pruned. There's these overgrowths or unnecessary growths that if you keep watering the plant, it's not going to help. It could actually hurt it. What it actually needs is some pruning. And that's what we are energetically being called to do. And so I feel like this feeling of hope that I'm getting is some people may not have that imbalance as much, but if you are feeling too hopeful, I feel like we need to kind of bring ourselves back into reality and recognize that this situation may actually require you to cut back on it so that you can focus on other areas that you actually feel like growth can really occur. And for some people, maybe it is about cultivating more hope and taking risk towards something new. But I think once again, I feel like in order to do that, if you are feeling like you need to risk something and embrace hope in one area, you're gonna have to stop doing it in another area. That's really the thing. This is not a time of just expansion and growth. It's kind of like you need to cut back in order to grow. There are times when decrease or letting go are necessary for that healthy growth. And I keep hearing the word intuitively, like sustainability and conservation of energy. And so I myself have been trying to get rid of anything that is feeling like it's taking away my time and energy from the things that I can see growth in, that I want to risk for, that I want to actually embrace hope for. Getting rid of even like unnecessary items, ways of making money, relationships. There's a cleansing that's happening. And because this is Pluto, it's working on a very deep energetic pattern as well. Carrie Hone says about this, nature shows us that decrease is not a negative event. It is simply how life continues in its forward movement. In the great circle, what appears to go backward is just an illusion. If we look at the shift of energy in the natural world, so let's say when trees are losing their leaves, there is something that's receding in our observations, right? But it's because that unseen energy is gathering someplace else. There's a conservation of energy that tree is recognizing, right now it doesn't make a lot of sense for me to look so beautiful and to have all these green, beautiful leaves sprouting and photosynthesizing. Instead, I'm gonna conserve my energy for when the conditions are better. And that's kind of the similar situation that we are in right now. Allow that what appears to be receding to become gathering of unseen energy. This hexagram allows us to see through the illusion of scarcity and understand that we can actually sometimes do more with less, and that sometimes less is more, and that we can be more productive when we actually focus on the things that really, really matter in our lives right now. So for the all signs, I'm going to be going through some questions. I'm going to put them here in case I don't get to all of these questions for all the all signs, so that you can also just reflect on this yourself. Some questions I'm going to be asking are: where will you confront internal power dynamics, patterns of control, shadow work, and areas of hidden strength? Where will you be doing a necessary pruning in your life over the next 5 months? Where have you possibly had too much hope and may need to face the reality of a situation that is no longer working, not working right now, or that you simply recognize that you just can't work on so many things in this area of your life at once? Now, these are going to be general readings, so please take what resonates. And if you feel like this video stirred something and you're curious about what I might sense this is about for you, check out the form that I created. Like I said, I'll have that link below. And if you're also ready to work one-on-one with me, I'll have that link available down below as well. With that being said, I'll see you guys in the all signs. For my Aries, sun, moon, and rising, this Pluto retrograde is happening in your 11th house. The 11th house is about groups, communities, hopes and visions for the future. It's about humanitarian issues, organizations that you belong to. You'll be reassessing your connections to these things, to groups, friends, and your bigger dreams, your visions. And you may realize that some alliances are no longer aligning with your future. And it's time to really redefine who you're building with and what you're building toward. I also think this is a really great time for you to reevaluate these patterns around seeking acceptance in the world, or possibly constantly choosing to rebel in certain areas of the world, and whether or not those patterns are working for you. I also would say, are there power dynamics that keep showing up again and again within communities that you're ready to overcome? And are there these patterns that, require some shadow work? Or on the positive side, are there areas of hidden strength that you have within communities and groups of people and organizations that Pluto is asking you to reclaim your power within? As I talked about in the beginning of the video, there is this sense of like pruning something in this part of your chart too. So this could be re-examining friendships, like I said, or organizations or humanitarian issues, and also any fractured dreams, right? That we've held on tightly to that may not be in alignment during this time. And my advice to you guys during this time is to trust that not every companion or every friend is meant for every chapter, and that the future could be asking you to realize that an old version of future dreams has to die in order for you to reclaim power within this new vision that you have. And so this can be a painful process, but I just think, especially for you guys, there's this like conservation of energy that's happening around groups, communities, online communities, technology, organizations, all these 11th house things. It's asking you not to spread yourself thin, but actually find where your power is within this part of your life. So Aries, let me know how this resonates for you guys. I'll see you guys next time. For my Taurus, sun, moon, and rising, Pluto is going retrograde in your 10th. So specifically, if you have anything from 0 to 5 degrees of Taurus in your chart, you're going to be probably feeling this more intensely. Pluto in the 10th is really about career, legacy, reputation, authority figures, the father as well. So maybe you are reevaluating a lot of this in your chart, and kind of some dynamics and patterns of control that you've had in this part of your chart for a really long time that are asking for a shift. And to me, when Pluto's in your chart, I mean, it's here forever. It feels like almost 20 years till 2044. So this isn't going to be an overnight process, but career shifts on a very deep level are happening. But because Pluto is so subconscious and so deep, I think it's more about the patterns underlying your public life and how you show up in the world in that way, and the legacy and reputation that you have. It's not just about like, oh, I'm gonna get a new job. It's like the changes that are happening are coming from a very, very deep level, and you're kind of reflecting on those things during this time. You could be even rethinking ambitions, your reputation, and just in general, your relationship with authority or your father. And the goals that you're chasing, because this is the house of achievements, are they actually aligned with who you are now? Or are you running off of these old patterns I was talking about? Now, for you guys specifically, Pluto rules your 7th house, right, of Scorpio. So this often for you guys has to do with other people. So this could mean that there are changes in relationships that are fueling your ambition changes, your career changes, or that you are somehow, the way that you are connecting to other people is somehow changing your career. So my advice to you guys during this time would be to redefine success to your soul standards, not what anybody else expects of you or what you even expected of you. You could also be reclaiming power in your career field, reclaiming authority in your career field, and having to do some shadow work around, do I feel safe? And do I believe that I'm worthy of showing up as an authority? And you may also be thinking about what I talked about in the first part of the video, pruning back certain areas of your career and ambitions and achievements in order to focus on the ones that are really actually impactful and meaningful to you. So my advice here would be to redefine success from a soul's perspective and not from a material standpoint. So Taurus, let me know how this resonates for you guys. I'll see you guys next time. Gemini, Sun, Moon, and Rising. Pluto is going retrograde in your 9th house. Now, Pluto going retrograde is definitely a difficult thing for a lot of people, but for you guys specifically right now, this is trine your sign. So it may feel like the transformation that's going on is actually, compared to other signs, a little softer, okay? It may not feel like that, but compared to other signs, a little bit softer. The 9th house is a big house. It's about higher education, law, travel, expansion of consciousness, truth, wisdom, mentorship, publishing, teaching. So your beliefs and your worldview are undergoing a really deep inner review with Pluto here. And it could be coming through education, it could be coming through travel as well, or some sort of a spiritual philosophy that you're undertaking or you're desiring to be very curious about. But you're really gonna be looking into like, what is actually guiding you in this life? And I want you to look at these beliefs that you have around whatever, but especially around like education, traveling, your spiritual philosophy or your philosophy of life, and see like, is there a place where you can find hidden power here? Like maybe for some Geminis, there is a sense that you could be a wonderful teacher, but you don't feel like you ever know enough. You could be publishing a book, but you never feel like your work is good enough. And so Pluto is asking you to like really uncover these deep patterns that keep you small. And instead, Pluto is saying, can you unlearn the philosophies and the beliefs that have kept you small and stuck in order to expand? Because this house is ultimately, like I said, it's about expansion of consciousness and expansion through traveling or higher education or things like that. Now, Pluto for you guys naturally rules the 6th house. So I feel like this has something to do with work or health. Maybe there have been health issues or work issues or daily responsibilities that have put you in a pattern of believing something, right? So like if there's been authority issues at work, Like that's maybe why you feel like you never know enough to teach, or you never know enough to write something and get published, or really put yourself out there and have this like really positive outlook on life, because being bogged down by daily responsibilities or old patterns regarding what you believe you're capable of. And my advice to you guys is honestly something that you guys might really like to hear, which is to stay curious during this time and really reevaluate your belief structures and if they're serving you well or not. And for a lot of you guys, because Pluto rules over your 6th house, there could be changes to your diet, there could be changes to your job that are kind of pushing forth this reevaluation of the changes that are happening in your belief system. When Pluto goes through the 9th house, obviously this is going to be a long-term thing, but also because of what I talked about in the first part of the video, because it's going through the first decan, there is this sense that you may be needing to cut back on a certain area of your life. So maybe if you've been traveling too much or having, I think for most of you guys, this is more about beliefs. So pruning back on certain beliefs that have kept you small in order to embrace hope in other areas of your belief systems, or maybe traveling or something in a way that makes you feel expansive. So pulling back in one area so you can grow in another is kind of the energy that I talked about a lot. So if you guys are interested, I have this forum with a few questions. I'll have that link down below. If you guys want me to gently reflect back to you what this could be. And if you're ready to work one-on-one as well, I do have that link below. Let me know how this resonates for you, Gemini. I'll see you guys next time. For my Cancer, Sun, Moon, and Rising, Pluto is going retrograde in your 8th house. Now, Pluto going retrograde in the 8th house is about deep transformation. It's about intimate partnerships, shared resources, trust in another, right? This is a very relational house. So, hi, baby. There could be a deep examination of emotional bonds and power dynamics in relationships, because the 8th house is about the give and take in relationships on a very deep emotional level. So this can be emotional, yes, and then financial, right? Because this house has to do with shared financial resources, whether that's with a bank or partner or a business partner, re-examining like how much you give and how much you take. But ultimately, Pluto is in his house, right? This is the 8th house of Scorpio. And for you guys, Pluto naturally rules your 5th house, and it's going into the 8th. So when this happens, that means that the issues that are going under reevaluation, especially when it comes to the give and take of partnerships, is like your own creative self-expression, your own sense of pleasure and joy in the world, and what you love and what you find pleasurable are going through really big transformations, and it's happening within these intimate partnerships or shared resources. So for some of you guys, this could have something to do with children, but ultimately what I see this being is that old bonds could be demanding new healing. And if we think about it as the kind of the questions that I'm thinking about for all of the signs, like where will you confront power dynamics in these emotional bonds or people that you have shared resources with? So this could even be like re-examining if you're married or you share resources with someone, are they taking too much control over that? Or are you taking too much control over that? And there might be like a redistribution of resources and the power dynamics within that. Patterns of control, shadow work. Also, power or hidden strength where you can reclaim your power within this area, right? So maybe you've given up so much of your power in relationships that this is kind of asking you to take that back. And where can you stand in your own power and truth? Where will you be doing a necessary pruning back in your life over the next 5 months? Like, where could you be releasing debts, right? This is a house of debts because of this share. It's money that's not yours. So this redistribution of finances could be like you're releasing debts. The 6th house is also debts, but yeah, we'll just say that releasing old financial bondages, releasing old emotional bondages, and this may be through a dissolution of letting people go that you have close partnerships with, or it could just be that there's a transformation happening within those bonds, right? And what area of this part of your chart have you maybe had too much hope in, and now you need to put hope into something different? I talk more about that in the beginning part of this video. So Cancers, my advice to you guys would be to release emotional and financial situations that chain you to the past. And this is what you're going to be reevaluating during this time. If you guys are interested in filling out that form that I talked about to reflect some of these things back to you, that's down below, as well as the link to work with me. Let me know how all this resonates. I'll see you next time. Leo, Sun, Moon, and Rising. Oh boy. How's everyone feeling? As you know, I am a Leo rising, so I'm definitely going through it. And if you have anything in the first 5 degrees of Leo in your chart, you may also be feeling this as well quite strongly. The 7th house is about partnerships of all kinds, romantic, business, and close friendships, one-on-one relationships. It's also about contracts too. So you could be reevaluating contracts in some way, reevaluating friendships and romantic partners, and business partners as well, and close friendships, like I said, but also not just the relationships themselves, but your relationship to them, right? So the 7th house isn't just, it's oftentimes about other people, but a lot of times it's also shadowing and reflecting back to us how we relate to other people, right? So it's, I think, really important for us to recognize that aspect of it. There could be a major rebalancing happening here. So even if there are relationships you may be letting go of, right? Pluto is kind of known for transformation of relationships, and the ones that are not deeply aligned with you, you're gonna start feeling this very acutely, and you're gonna really desire to no longer engage in those, at least for this time being. I'm house sitting for a close friend of mine, so there's lots of animals here. It's a lot of love, a lot of love. And you may be like going through this period of time where you're renegotiating your commitments to people, renegotiating your boundaries with other people. Pluto for us Leos rules the 4th house. This is a very deep part of our chart, the deepest part of our chart, our home life, our family life. So wherever Pluto goes, it brings up for us a lot of deep childhood patterns, emotional patterns that we've had since we were children in that part of our chart. So now this is coming up through relationships for you and how you relate to other people. How have you done this in the past? Where have you given your power away in relationships? You're going to be seeing that. And where can you reclaim your power within relationships when you relate to other people? You know, this is very common for Leos to kind of make themselves small in order to make other people feel okay with how bright they are. But as I always say, you are the sun. You are, especially for Leo risings, like literally that's your ruler, right? Like you are here to shine bright, but we often are so sensitive to other people's feedback that we will dim that shine in order to feel more accepted and loved and appreciated. And I think that you're seeing that this is not going to work anymore for you. So where have you also had too much hope in relationships that you may also need to face the reality of a certain situation? That means that you may have to give something up in order to focus on something that is better. This is also a house of clients as well. So like one-on-one clients, if you work with other people. So maybe there's a transformation happening within how you work with clients. So my advice for you guys is to honor the relationships that there is mutual growth in. Look really closely at partnerships in which control is very big and there isn't as much mutual growth because of that control. What I can see this as is whatever's happening in your relationships is a mirror back to you. Pluto in the 7th can often bring manipulative people in our lives, or the people in our lives become more manipulative, or we see them that way. But it can also bring very powerful people into our lives as well. So it's very positive in that way. But just remembering that the 7th house is always a mirror to the self. And that doesn't mean that we have to stay in unhealthy situations, but it does mean that we are being forced to look at those energetic patterns that have been running our lives for a really long time. And we can see that through the reflection of the other. So that's why, I created this form. If you guys want me to reflect back to you what I sense could be the root of feeling stuck for you at this time, the form is down below. The link for the form is down below. Leos, let me know how this resonates for you guys. I'll see you next time. For my Virgo, Sun, Moon, and Rising, this is happening in your 6th house. Pluto's going retrograde in your 6th house of work, of health, daily responsibilities, routines, pets. This is a time that you could be thinking or reflecting on your daily habits, your health routines, how you manage your workload and your responsibilities within work, your work environment, or your work in general as well. It's going to really push you to transform certain structures. And you have to look at whether or not these structures are actually helping you grow or they're draining you, right? So for you guys, Pluto naturally rules the third. So there's a lot of emphasis from me here on your day-to-day habits, your day-to-day responsibilities, your health routines. This is where Pluto is going to be really working on for the next 19 years. And so right now you're reflecting and pruning back. Like I said in the first part of the video, because of the hexagram that this is falling in, you may be pruning back certain health routines or certain ways of living your life, whether that's through, not exercising or not eating well or doing things that are harmful for your health. And you're reevaluating that and reclaiming how much power and strength you have in taking care of this vessel, right? And reclaiming that mind-body connection. But again, the 6th house is also work. So this could be something about work and what kind of responsibilities you take on at work and whether or not you take on too much responsibilities or, patterns of control and these dynamics that have been going on for a long time around power dynamics in the workplace and whether or not you're ready to give those up or not. So this could be like for a lot of you guys, some sort of transformation around work. This could mean for some of you guys releasing a work situation, releasing some sort of a habit that you have in order to make room for growth in another area of work or health. So my advice to you guys during this time is to tend to your body with rituals that nourish you. Tend to your body and your spirit with rituals that nourish you, because this is looking at the 12th house. Right? So I always talk about, I always just think about that. What can you do? What do you do day to day that nourishes your body and spirit? And if there isn't anything, then that's what you're being asked to cultivate hope for. Abandon the safety of comfort so that you can move towards something that is actually really helping you grow and not just pushing you down, draining you, exhausting you. The 6th house is a house of conflict. This is important because there may be deep energetic patterns that are happening within how you even handle conflict, your communication pattern, right? Because Pluto rules your 3rd house, that could be at the root of whatever issue this is at. Like if you have conflict at home, if you have conflict at work, if you have conflict anywhere, there could be a deep energetic pattern that's keeping you stuck. So if you want any reflection on that from me, I have a form down below, and I also have my link down if you want to work one-on-one with me. I have some availability for that. So let me know how this resonates for you guys. I'll see you guys next time. For my Libra sun, moon, and rising, Pluto is currently going through your 5th house. The 5th house is creative self-expression. It's a house of joy, pleasure, entertainment, childlike joy, your inner child or children in your life. When Pluto goes through here, there is, and when it goes retrograde here, there is something that is changing at a very deep level about how you express yourself in your life, especially creatively and through love and romance. It's the house of love and romance as well. So creative passions, romance, and your connection with your inner child or your connection with your children, these are all up for a deep reflection during this time. So you're being asked to reclaim your power within your authentic self-expression. What are you afraid of? Pluto rules your 2nd house. So it's about finances for sure. Like finances are definitely going through a change here. And maybe you're putting more finances toward romance, love, creativity, and self-expression. But I could also see this being your values, your deep values around what you believe is good and not good, right? Libra, especially Libra risings, but all Libra placements have this affinity, especially have this affinity for understanding what is socially acceptable and what is not socially acceptable. And so maybe there are some values around that need some transformation in order for you to express yourself more authentically with less fear. And what kind of patterns are you running off of that have kept you feeling like you can't be bold? You can't be this creative leader, right? Leo person in your life. This is where Pluto is asking you to transform and to reclaim your power within. And then, like I said, to reflect on and reevaluate these internal power dynamics that you felt, these patterns of control, and any shadow work against leading with your heart. Right? This is the 5th house, Leo. It's leading with your heart. What has kept you from being able to just fully put yourself out there and be bold in the world and to really do what you love? And maybe for some of you guys, like if you don't know what you love to do, maybe this is the time where you're reflecting on that. Or do you feel like you don't deserve to love what you do, or that you don't even feel worthy enough to even look into what you actually love? And has it always just been about pleasing other people for you when it comes to whatever you do in your life, right? Where have you possibly also had too much hope in your life in this part of your chart? You know, where have you, I guess a better question to ask, honestly, is in what way do you need to pull back on a certain part of your life in the 5th house in order to pursue something else? So this may look like giving up or slowing down on a creative hobby in order to pursue another creative hobby, or romantic interest, I guess, you know, if you're dating. Or maybe this could even look like, you know, letting go of a love relationship, or saying to a partner or whatever, like, hey, I need to focus on my creativity right now, and so it's going to be less focused on our romance or whatever. Or vice versa, it could be that you're letting go of a creative passion in order to focus more on having joy, pleasure in another part of your life. These are the kind of things that you're going to be going back and forth with during this. So my advice to you guys during this time would be to create for you first, not for others, right? This is a thing that Libras have to tend with a lot. Like, who are you doing this for? And do you believe that you are worthy of doing something for yourself first? If you're interested in understanding this blockages a little bit more for you, I have a form down below. Feel free to fill it out if you feel called to. Let me know how this resonates for you guys, Libra. I'll see you next time. Scorpio, Sun, Moon, and Rising. Well, Pluto, your ruler, is going retrograde in your 4th house. So if you guys have anything within the first 5 degrees of Scorpio, you're feeling this much more intensely. Your ruler being in the 4th house is a time of unearthing hidden emotional stories that have been inside of you for so long that are begging to be seen, begging to be reflected on, and possibly revised. When Pluto goes through the 4th house, there are changes that are happening in the home, selling a house, buying houses, real estate, moving, changes within the home, right? Somebody's moving in, somebody's moving out. But on a deeper level, the 4th house is a house of the emotional foundations, your childhood wounds, your ancestral wounds. So whatever's happening is much deeper than what's actually happening in the physical home or within your family life. There could be issues with the family. And you're being asked to revisit internal power dynamics that are built very deep inside of you emotionally, possibly from childhood patterns. These patterns of control, doing shadow work, especially for you guys, like doing therapy or some sort of really deep emotional work would be very, very helpful during this Pluto retrograde period. And, you know, I talked about this in the first part of the video, but there is this necessary decrease that needs to happen. So there could be you're letting go of a home, a life or something, or you're letting go of emotional patterns that are no longer serving you in order to embrace new ones that you feel like there is more growth in. So this could be very painful in some ways, but also liberating in others. Yeah, I feel like your home life, your emotional foundations, they're going under massive transformation. And because Pluto naturally rules you, your 1st house, this is a change in identity that's fueling this. right? It's almost like you are changing, and therefore your emotional foundations and like your identity is changing. How you're showing up in the world is being infused into why these changes have to happen now in your home life and your deep emotional foundations. So my advice to you guys during this time would be to heal the foundations before moving forward. Because even if you're, like I said, moving in and out or selling a house, doing whatever, there's something at the core of this that is needing tending to. So don't forget that part. Pluto's retrograde is what inspired me to create that form that I talked about. Is linked down below in case you guys are wanting some insight around what could be keeping you stuck during this time. And as always, my link to work with me one-on-one if you're feeling called to that as well. What is being rebuilt in this home of yours, in this inner home of yours? What is asking to be seen? Let me know how all this resonates. This feels very deep and intense, but it also feels very, very powerful for you guys. So yeah, let me know how this resonates. I will see you guys next time. Sagittarius, Sun, Moon, and Rising. Pluto is going retrograde in your 3rd house. This is about communication, thinking, learning, your relationship with people around you, specifically siblings, neighbors, cousins. This is an area that's undergoing a deep transformation for the next 19 years. But during this time, there could be reflection and revision around internal power dynamics that you have with these people, possibly, shadow work, control patterns that you have regarding thinking and communication and learning as well. So I think for you guys, this is really about understanding how you communicate to others and what that kind of instills into that situation. Pluto asks for deep inner reflection on this, right? So when you're thinking about your relationships with the people very close to you, like I said, neighbors, siblings, cousins fall under the 3rd house. But when you think about communication, this is ultimately a very big part of your life. How does your communication affect your relationships, the situations that you are in all the time, immersed in, right? The 3rd house is just like your immediate environment. So old thought patterns, old communication patterns, they may need to be revisited for a necessary change. And I think because Pluto is going retrograde, it's less about how are they doing it versus how am I contributing to that, right? And when doing that shadow work, then learning how can I reclaim my power here? How can I reclaim my power in communication in a way that feels deeply soul aligned and is not coming from fear or past trauma, right? Because for you guys, Pluto rules the 12th house, which is the hidden, your subconscious. And so there could be a lot of subconscious patterns that you bring into your relationships with your family members, the people around you, and just how you communicate in general. And I feel like there's a deep shedding that's wanting to happen in this part of your chart right now. As I talked about with this hexagram, there is some sense that you are having to let go of something in order to focus on something that has more opportunity for growth. So this could be in those relationships I mentioned. It could be within the energetic patterns of those relationships that I mentioned, but it could also be about how you learn. So maybe you're in school for something right now and you decide that this isn't actually soul aligned with you and you're doing it because of old subconscious patterns, or you're taking a course and you feel that way, or it's about learning skills as well. So maybe there are new skills that are wanting to be learned by you, but you have to let go of other skills to have the energy to be able to pursue the things that actually matter to you. So my advice would be to speak what matters, reclaim your power and authority in how you speak, and also do the shadow work to make sure that you're not working from these deep subconscious patterns in your communication with others. So Sagittarius, let me know how this resonates for you guys. If you feel called to have me give you some insight on what could be keeping you from feeling stuck during this time, I do have a form I created for you. It's down in the description box. I'll see you guys next time. Capricorn, Sun, Moon, and Rising. You guys have this Pluto retrograde going through your 2nd house. Your 2nd house is about money. It's income, how you make money, how you spend money. It's your values, self-worth, self-esteem. This is a part of your chart that's going to be undergoing major transformation for the next 19 years. But during this time, you are reevaluating, reflecting, revisiting old power dynamics internally around these things. So it could be that you have this internal power dynamic or patterns of control around money that have kept you stuck for a really long time, and you're being asked to let go of something. Now, when it comes to this, being a money house or work house, you could be letting go of a job or deciding to shift and rebalance the energy of power and authority within that job during this time. But I could really see this being an income source that is leaving so a better one can come, a more aligned one can come. This is like shining a light on your values, your sense of self-worth. Do you feel like you are worthy to make money in a way that feels aligned? To let go of these power struggles that you have internally around making money so that you can step into a healthier and more balanced relationship to it. And, is your self-esteem wrapped up in money? That would be a good thing to think about. And in doing so, in some ways, you can reclaim your power. And the second house in Vedic astrology is, because it rules Taurus, it's your throat. So it can sometimes be about speaking. So like maybe this is about speaking your truth more, especially, depending on how you make money or where you work, or about your values, speaking on your values with more power, and really just standing in what you say could be something. You could be shedding attachments that no longer support true growth and security. For you guys, Pluto rules your 11th house. So this really could be about organizations that no longer call to you. There could be that you're having a different sense of vision for your future, and that is what is fueling a change in how you make money or your self-esteem. I feel like for some of you guys, the pattern of control around money and values is really about fitting into some sort of structure, into some sort of organization, or it's almost like you have created a certain connection to money, whatever that may be, in order to make you feel like you belong where you are, to have a sense of acceptance where you are, or possibly to rebel from the situations that you grew up in or your friends groups. You want to be different than them, but are you doing that just to be different? Like, this is a very Aquarius thing. Sometimes the shadow side is rebelling just to rebel, or conforming and not having a sense of unique individuality. So that's where you need to do the shadow work here. Like, what's happening with these issues around money for me? My advice to you guys would be to invest your energy in what helps you grow, not just helps your accounts grow. Yeah, like invest your energy into what invests into you and your growth on a deeper level, if that makes sense. Capricorns, let me know how that resonates for you guys. I will see you next time. Aquarius, sun, moon, and rising. Pluto is going retrograde in your first house. So obviously, if you guys have anything between 0 to 5 degrees of Aquarius, you're going to be feeling this the most intensely, but all Aquarius will be feeling this because it's happening in your first house. You're stepping into this very powerful and very personal rebirth, right? This is about shedding old identities, old appearances, if you're Aquarius rising, you could, by the time this Pluto transit's done, you're gonna look completely different. And you've gone through many iterations of different identities, different appearances, different attitudes of how you look at the world. Outdated identities, stepping into instead a very authentic sense of authority. So where you guys are going to be reclaiming your power is in your sense of self, as well as doing shadow work here, right? Like, what are your attachments to the current identities that you hold? Pluto rules naturally your 10th house. So for a lot of you guys, this has something to do with a father figure, that maybe instilled certain values in you or told you that you need to be a certain way in order to be loved or accepted or whatever, or some sort of authority figure growing up. It doesn't have to be the father. It could be the mother. It could be whoever was an authority in your life. Or it could be your sense of what you were told by society, or being in a career that kind of tells you that you need to look a certain way or you need to be a certain way in order to be successful and achieve something in this world. Is that actually who you are though? You know, and this is what Pluto is asking you to let go of, like these old identities, and investing instead in new identities that are more aligned, that have the potential for way more growth in your life. The soul is asking for you to claim your true face. My advice for you guys during this time is to be courageous, enough to outgrow who you thought that you had to be, and instead embrace who you really are. Because we need that. We really, really need you to be who you really are right now, in a balanced state, right? So that's why the shadow work is necessary, so you can reclaim true power. Aquarius, let me know how this resonates for you guys. I will see you next time. Pisces, sun, moon, and rising. Pluto is going retrograde in your 12th house. This is a long-term influence, right? Pluto's going to be here till 2044. But during this retrograde, this is shedding old subconscious patterns that keep you small. You're doing a lot of behind the work scenes regarding power, shadow work, understanding where you've lost your power in your subconscious, where you've given that power to other people, possibly. For you guys, Pluto rules your 9th house, so another house of belief systems, but also this is a house of, in Vedic astrology, of father, but also mentors. So were there masculine or mentor or guides in your early life or in your life in general who you've kind of succumbed to their power? This is asking you to, and this is very subconscious, right? So having very, like you're gonna get these messages maybe through dreams, through hypnosis, during meditation, when you're doing journaling. Something that is coming when you are not consciously paying attention. So like stream of consciousness journaling, you know? There is a sacred surrender that is asking to happen right now while you dive deep into these subconscious patterns, this karmic baggage in this collective unconscious. A lot of this karmic stuff honestly isn't even yours. I always say this with the 12th house, that this is where the collective unconscious is. So like some of it is personal, yes, but when Pluto, which is not a personal planet, goes through here, you're feeling the power struggles of the collective. It may not even be about you. And so while this can feel really like can bring you into the state of victimhood, like, well, this isn't even about me, but it can also give you so much power to tap into what is the collective unconscious going through regarding power and power dynamics. How can I find that within myself and get these messages so then I can share it with the world from a very, very deep level? And, you know, the 9th house is a house of like being a teacher, being a mentor. So maybe this is you learning and gaining your power through teaching others because of doing your own shadow work and doing that really deep work. You're going to be looking at hidden fears, right? There's a deep potential for a spiritual renewal to happen here. So my advice to you guys is to trust the unseen work that you are doing. Trust that it's enough. Trust that it's very, very powerful, and that the healing is occurring even if you don't see it right now. Trust that it is happening, and at the right time, it will bloom. You will bloom. So Pisces, let me know how this resonates for you guys. I'll see you next time.